Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Gospel of Comics. I'm your host, the Church of Failure, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Ayrton McCartney. We also have special guest S.K. Barrett and Becky. Becky from the Dead Man's Tome. S.K., would you like to introduce yourself?
He's the homeless guy we found on the street.
That too.
Yeah, you know what? The notion that you can't make bail on the weekend is false.
I mean, it is if you have a parole officer and or a decent bail bond.
Yeah, it's a wonderful modern age we live in.
Yeah, the magistrate will give you bail on the weekends if the court's not open. The magistrate will. Anyway, we're gonna do a little bit of something different today. We're gonna. I mean, I know I say that every episode pretty much now, but we're going to have a discussion that we're going to start off with talking about the legacy IPs of the different, big two companies, Marvel and DC, and really any legacy IP, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are getting on there up in age. I'm really getting sick of seeing My Little Pony comics, and they're not even that old. But
that's no.
I just
that's not really. They're not. No, tell me ponies aren't really still a comic thing.
Oh, dude, there's like 2 or 3 different My Little Pony comics in one. Yeah.
Really?
Jesus.
Yeah. Remember.
Why?
Remember, if you decide to order out
because
for pizza,
the sweet meteor of death is late.
Call the Domino's down the street, not the Pizza Hut across the road. But
you know what? I think I heard a few years ago about these guys that are into My Little Pony.
Yeah, the bronies.
Bronies, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, this is
Jesus.
Shit, this is not where I wanted to take this episode this early, but all right, we're there. Anyway,
brony discussion it is.
U-turn time.
I have 2 authors and 2 comic book enthusiasts, being myself and Ayrton, and the authors being Becky and SK. Becky, SK, you are an author, right? Or Becky lied to me?
Yes.
Technically speaking, I've written a book, yes.
I have written a book that only me and my mother have read. No, I'm just.
I've read it. I'm not his mother.
Are you sure?
People bought it. Well, I don't know who read it.
Me?
Well, we all need paperweights. I mean, come on now. No, I'm just fucking with you, man. What did you write?
I wrote my first book is actually nonfiction.
Okay.
It's if you can believe it, it's kind of an.
We don't need to hear about your cancer dates.
It's kind of an advice book, a
Jordan Peterson type thing. Wash your penis, clean your room.
Yeah, I like that. But if imagine if Jordan Peterson was more of a smartass.
Wait. I'm sorry, that what? How much more of a smartass can you get than wash your penis and clean your room?
No.
Getting paid $1 million a year to tell people to wash their penis and clean their room. Come on now.
Yes. Now, when you account for all the variables, all you really have to do is just wash your penis, fellas.
Oh my God.
But anyway, if you'll put a link to that in the side chat, we'll put it in the description for people that want the show to check out. I just
Sure.
Like I say, I wanted to start this discussion off with a simple thought that I had the other day. I've been reading comic books for going on 20 years now, and by the way, I'm gonna put in some just covers and some random pages for some comic books in the background, so it's not just our traditional backdrop the whole time. But they don't have anything to do with what we're talking about.
Belt pants. Oh my God.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But my initial thought was, in 2019, I've been reading comic books for a solid 20 years steady. And for that entire time, we've always had the Justice League, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, the Flash, Aquaman, Cyborg, and or Martian Manhunter. You know, all these characters. We've always had the Avengers, Captain America, Captain Marvel, whether it's a woman, a man, or an alien, or a black woman, or a black man, or whoever. Iron
Archie
Man,
and Jughead.
Archie and Jughead. Even them, you know, I mean, these fall into
Yeah.
it.
Garfield, Calvin and Hobbes.
Okay, all right, those are Marvel and DC properties. Eric, I will fire you.
Yay!
I won't hire you though, Becky, just to spite you.
Oh, damn it.
But
Ha! That's what you get, woman.
Kiss my butt.
you know, after a solid
All
40,
right.
50, 60, 70 years of publishing on some of these characters, I feel like it's time to put some of them down and say, you know what, we need to freshen up the brand and take it in a direction that we're going to get new readers and that we're going to bring back people that are collectors and old fans. Now, at that point, you have to take into consideration that this week, while I was at my local comic store bagging and boarding the weekly comics, there were not one, but 3 different Spider-Man titles that came out. Now,
Wow.
how many
Like,
stories can you tell with Spider-Man, who was a character created in the 60s, that you need 3 books a week at $5 a piece? Now, even if they're
Wow.
monthlies, you know, 2 weeks later you got 2 or 3 more. Go ahead, Becky.
Okay, it was just a general question. Really, probably doesn't make any difference. But are they're all Spider-Man, and then they have a subtitle to them? Like,
Right.
okay,
Because right now,
so there's 3 of them at a time.
well, right now you've got Spider-Gwen, Amazing Spider-Man, some symbiote title, you know, Web of Spider-Man, the Symbiote of Spider-Man, something like that. You've got your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which I believe is the Miles Morales title. I believe you have Adventures of Spider-Man, which is co-published by IDW. And you've got Amazing Spider-Man, Renew Your Vows. So that's what, 6, 7 right there?
Wow.
And those are all coming out every month. So, I mean, at a certain point, you're just milking the brand because Spider-Man's a popular character, right?
Right.
I mean, it's the same.
Yeah, that sounds like that point was crossed quite some time ago.
Well, absolutely. You know, and this is why I wanted to have some, you know, authors that had actually written something and understand the, you know, the style of narrative that a writer would. But
I can see having some branch offs, because a lot of writers do that, you know, and they write a book, and then, you know, they enjoyed the world, they like the characters, and they can see, you know, like a series would have a spinoff. I
Well,
mean, you know, but
absolutely.
that many, that's crazy.
But well,
Yeah,
that,
but in the Similarian, Tolkien was just getting up his own ass at that point. Like, come on.
all right.
Oh,
We're
I
not.
thought that would be an interesting book, and it really wasn't.
It was not. It was almost punishment for liking the Lord of the Rings.
Right.
It was almost your penance for liking the Lord of the Rings. But let me
Well,
just.
but it did serve a point of identifying those dorks who were overly into Tolkien.
Oh yeah. When they were so far up his ass that he could do no wrong, and they were like, "The Cimmerian was a beautiful piece of work. You just don't understand it."
Right?
And then they'd whip their greasy ponytail at you.
Oh my God.
But I know because I did it. I
and then
mean,
they
let
rub
me
their
just
face with
be honest.
Clearasil.
let me just be honest. I know it was a greasy ponytail because I had one and weaponized it often. But no, my whole shtick is that yeah, she could have a spinoff. Like when it comes to characters like Miles Morales Spider-Man, he is a second generation Spider-Man that was brought into the world after Peter Parker died in the Ultimate Universe. Oh, let me answer this. Sorry about that. What's up, man?
I'm gonna go inside for a minute.
Oh,
only 5
oh
minutes.
shit! I gotta
Hello?
add you to the other call. Hold on.
Okay.
All right, all right. Shit. What just happened? I'm gonna. All right, let me get back in the call. Sorry about that,
Hello?
guys.
Ground control to church.
Yes,
Are you there?
yes. You know, Denny called me. I don't even know if it was Denny on the line, but I'm gonna add him to the call. This is gonna be great.
Oh, Lord.
But
this is gonna go well.
anyway, having Miles Morales or Spider Gwen or Amazing Spider-Man renew your vows as a comic title, I don't see a problem in that. But why do you need to keep Peter Parker alive for 60 years? I mean, let's be completely honest. Like Peter Parker doesn't need to be 25 years old for 60 years.
Does he keep his
Yeah.
teeth in a glass
No.
and have
He's
a
eight.
walker?
He was 15 and he's aged to about 25 years old. Denny, are you in the call now?
So he's what, a vampire?
He's muted.
Oh, Denny, unmute yourself, buddy. I didn't mute you.
Yeah, so I'm
Me
muted on
Oh,
purpose because
okay.
for some reason it's only letting me use speaker, and I'm like right outside the convention center.
Okay.
So I didn't want to interrupt the call with a bunch of wind and a bunch of babble.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have Atomic Denny on Twitter who did the background. I'm gonna drop the cover real quick so that we can see his beautiful artwork that I commissioned for the channel. This is the artist that did the background
buddy.
there.
Oh, really? That's
Yep.
awesome. I love it.
Well, thank you.
That
Well, thank
that's really cool. Yeah.
I'm
Check him out on Instagram at Atomic Denny. He's got
Yeah,
all of
you
his
and I need
commission
to
work
talk.
up on there.
You guys are making me blush in front of a bunch of nerds.
Good man, good. Make some money. Next time you go to Comic Con, print up some fucking business cards, you goddamn slacker.
Yeah, come on, son.
Just send them and I'll bring them.
All right, will do. Anyway, we just hit on the fact that we have like 6 or 7 Spider titles coming out a week. So go ahead and comment on that while I got you on the line.
Well, I just think that that's ridiculous. If you're interested in Spider-Man, if you love Spider-Man, who's gonna pick up 7 Spider titles? I'm not. I love Spider-Man.
Right,
I'm not gonna
that's $35 a month on Spider-Man.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. You give me one Spider-Man book a month, and if you absolutely have to put your envelope, give me 2. But
Well-
make sure they're good.
Well, my point that I was trying to make was Becky brought up the idea that spin-offs are natural. They happen all the time in all kinds of mediums. And like I was saying, think about Miles Morales and Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man or Spider-Gwen. I'm fine with those titles existing. It's a natural evolution of the title. It's a legacy pass on. It's not Peter Parker in the goddamn spider suit.
Yeah.
Let Peter Parker stay dead.
No. Don't let Peter Parker stay dead. I like Peter Parker, and I think that it's an audience for him. I think it's a matter of...
I agree with
quality.
you, but in a monthly ongoing title, let Peter Parker stay dead. Write a 6-issue miniseries once a year with Peter Parker Spider-Man as an Elseworld or a What If. Or a legacy
I don't know
comic.
about that.
Or a special edition.
Right, but let Peter Parker stay dead in monthly ongoing titles where you have untalented writers writing things that only they have written.
See, I don't know that I like that, though. I don't like the idea of Peter Parker being a cameo. I like Miles Morales plenty. Like I said, if Marvel Comics feels like they really need to push it and give us 2 Spider books a month, then give us a Miles Morales Spider-Man and give us a Peter Parker Spider-Man. And if you want to do a big
How
event
how
for a
many
couple
more
months,
years? How
then
many
give
more
us a
years do
crime
you want to
movie or
keep
a Spider-Man.
Spider-Man 25 years old? How many more years do you want Peter Parker to be 25 years old and married to Mary Jane Watson?
Well, I mean, as long as Ash Ketchum is a 12-year-old, as long as Goku doesn't like age.
If this was
You know
an
what I mean?
anime stream, we'd be having that conversation. But this is a comic book stream.
Okay,
So, look, I have a
No, as long-
general
as long-
purpose Spider-Man question. Maybe you
as
Yeah.
long-
Yeah,
as
go
long
ahead.
as-
SK.
How the hell was he not arrested for stalking and peeping Tom?
Uh,
A 15-year-old who can climb up and look through anybody's window.
Web
How is
Because
he
he,
not-
because his
But the
spider sense
collaboration-
alerts him
When
to
the police
danger,
are
so he
coming,
would notice- yeah.
Ah, so
Right.
he's
And web
still
shooters.
A total perv. He just doesn't get caught. I
Right.
gotcha.
100%. Anyway.
Okay, that helps.
How long should we keep Peter Parker 25 years old? As long as Superman is still a 20 to 30-year-old virulent.
See, I don't want that
black-haired
either.
male.
I think Superman should have stayed dead after Doomsday killed him. We had Superboy, we had Supergirl. Why do we need
Well, I mean,
17 Kryptonians alive at the same time?
That's first of all, that's a whole can of worms to open up, but also that's done and sailed. Death doesn't mean anything in comics anymore. That's besides the point. Should they have killed Superman to begin with?
What?
Should they have killed Superman to begin with?
Yes.
Ah, man. I just,
See, your writers killed him for a reason, though.
Right. He was killed for a bigger point. He died saving everyone else, killing Doomsday at the same time. It was a
No,
noble
Superman-
sacrifice.
But
He went out at the height.
Superman died so that they could sell a bunch of copies of the death of Superman. That's why Superman died. Superman did
and
die
probably
for
because
But
Dory
weren't
and
you
Taker.
weren't
Superman
you
didn't
before we
die
started
because
this weren't you before we started this stream advocating for the idea of direct markets to be able to make money off a comic book they could charge $50 for on day of release?
No, I was not advocating for that. I certainly wasn't advocating for flooding the direct market with.
I'm not talking about flooding, but wouldn't that be a great thing if
Well,
the direct
that's-
market had a story that they could sell for $50 perpetually till the end of time?
You're trying to compare what I just said about the death of Superman to me advocating for the direct market in some way, and what they did with the death of Superman was making every Tom, Dick, and Harry think, oh, this book that they're printing 1 billion copies of, I better go buy 10 of them so I can pay for my kids' college. That was like the single biggest nail in the direct market's coffin,
Right.
and also just comic books as a whole, because it made them
Well,
worthless.
Let's go around the room. Becky as ladies first. Becky, Ayrton, and then SK. Everybody kind of weigh in on
Well,
this.
Becky just messaged me that she went to pee.
Okay, well we'll do
So
ladies first. Ayrton,
SK.
SK.
Hi.
All right. So let me approach this from a more of a writerly perspective and say you absolutely need to be able to kill off characters because they have to, even in comic books, they have to be killable.
Oh, I don't mean to. Sorry, I don't mean to interject. I just wanted to say I didn't mean to give the impression that I disagree with that. I think that character death is a very important part of being able to tell a story. Comic books kneecapped themselves. Comic books cut their own Achilles heel when they made death pointless.
Right, because then there's no real peril to them, right?
Yeah.
If you can't fucking hurt your characters, then it becomes comic book violence.
Well,
which is why they call it that.
Like Jason Todd dying was such an important part of just mythos and comic book storytelling in general. It was Batman's Robin died because he failed to protect him, and that's a major flaw in that character. That's something that character is going to have to grapple with. And now, years later, it's like, no, he's the Red Hood, and death doesn't have consequences. And Gwen Stacy, Superman, Jason Todd, anybody, death doesn't mean anything anymore, and that's a big detriment to the industry as a whole.
All right.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
so
SK. Or Ayrton, whoever.
Well, so I still have PTSD from that DC 1 million story. Like, if
Yeah, Superman in
like
the middle of the sun
when you
being golden.
yes, when you keep a character around for 80 years, you write a story where he becomes golden and marries a silver blob that turns into a woman at the end. Like, you see, but if they had just made it like a 6-issue miniseries once a year, or even 12, like 2 6-issue miniseries, you wouldn't run out of ideas and have to do something as ridiculous as that.
Becky, you got anything, or is she still in the loop?
She's still muted, so I don't know
Okay.
if she's back and forgot to
wanna-
mute. But
I have a second point.
Go ahead, SK.
I think that this phenomena amongst comic books is, oddly enough, it's the same phenomena that you see from Hollywood, and that is the fear of new ideas.
Yes.
Because new ideas are fucking risky, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But you got to take, if you're afraid of failing, you'll never have a really good success. You don't open yourself up to the opportunity of success if you remove the opportunity to fail.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. But I mean, that's the problem. Publishing. That's the problem. That's the problem with movie studios. It's the problem with any corporate entity that gets behind a passion project or any kind of story. Really, this isn't about the story. This is about how do we make this profitable.
Talk closer to the microphone, Denny. You're coming in really quiet.
Yeah, I got his point. And the problem is that the people who are in the position to make the decisions on which stories to bring forward to the public are afraid of being fired. And that completely colors their decision making. And they know that they aren't going to be fired if they put out another fucking Spider-Man. But they might if they take a chance on some new guy or gal who's coming up with a new character, and it doesn't go well.
They might be fired if they make a Spider-Man book and it's not in the vein that Marvel wants Spider-Man to be in right now. It says a message that they don't want to come across as Spider-Man. You're like, you know what? It's just the entire corporate environment is restrictive to create it.
Well, let's take a step back and just kind of examine that from the outsider's perspective. Let's stop giving a shit about people's jobs who we don't even know, or know if they'll even be good.
Well, I'm not saying you should care about it. I'm saying
no.
Just
I'm
motivation of the decision making.
No. I get that, but let's take a step back. Let's take a step back into the shoes of the consumer. Who's to say that I want to keep? Because here's the thing: you're selling a legacy. You're selling Superman, who's been around for 80 years. You're selling Batman, who's been around for 80 years. Spider-Man, who's been around for 60 years. Captain America, who's been around for 60 years. You're selling these properties, and the original creators are all dead.
Hey
Right.
guys.
Yeah.
My Uber is here, so I do have to go. But what I wanted to say really quick before
Let's
I
get the driver in on the discussion.
Right, yeah, just I mean, you're all in speaker, so.
but before I do go, I did want to ask. Okay, so Superman's been around for 80 years. Batman's been around for 80 years. These characters need to age. These characters need to die. Mickey Mouse died.
I don't think that's not a
Yeah,
problem
that's
either, but this isn't a cartoon conversation, so I can't comment on it.
Well, but it sort of is though, because I mean, that's what comic books are. They're motionless cartoons.
Any author or artist worth their salt will tell you that Disney is an IP cancer that keeps things out of the public domain that should have been there 20 years ago.
Yeah, but I wasn't talking about Disney. I was talking about Mickey Mouse as a character, as an icon, as somebody that you see and attach to and recognize and think, I like that. I want to see more of that. Should he die? No, because he's profitable. Because people want that, and the same thing I think applies to Superman. People want that.
Mickey Mouse
doesn't have storylines.
Mickey Mouse isn't a literary background. He's not a Shakespearean character.
Well, no, but neither is Superman.
He is. if you take Superman's
I want
legacy,
to
he has.
call him Shakespeare.
If you want to look at Superman's legacy and write it all down, you'll have a book thicker than the Odyssey when you're done. Come at me, bro.
Well, what I'm is should that symbol that people are still willing to invest in and pay money to, should that die because it's so old? Like realistically,
No, but Superboy and Supergirl both wore that symbol, and they wore it with honor and respect, and they earned the ability to wear it. Why should Superman be the only one to carry it for the next 100 years because somebody's worried about IP and they won't be able to sell a book under a different title? But they still put out Supergirl and Superboy books, don't they?
Well, I think you're falsely equivocating the idea that Superman aging, Superman dying, Batman aging, Batman dying is going to usher in new readers and a new generation, and I don't think that's the case. We don't watch Disney because we like Mickey Mouse's son. I just don't think that's I think that's a false equivalency, and what I'm saying still reigns true. People are willing to put money into the symbol of Superman as long as
Denny, I mean, remember the Batman Beyond cartoon in the 90s? Like that was an old grumpy Bruce Wayne passing the mantle down to someone new, and that show was a pretty good success. I remember watching it. I thought it was great.
Oh yeah, no, I love Batman Beyond.
If it's done right.
He's our current Batman, right? And he's got the red and black mech suit and the gliders and all of that's our current Batman.
Why do we have to have Bruce Wayne when we already have that?
Answer that. Is Batman Beyond our current Batman, or is Bruce Wayne?
Well, it's Bruce Wayne because that's what DC's forced on us.
Well, no, it's
Batman Beyond. Beyond's always taking a back seat.
It's Bruce Wayne because the gray and blue sells. It's Bruce Wayne because Bruce Wayne sells. Batman Beyond was profitable and it was fun, but it's not a classic. It's not going to be the Batman that reigns out in people's hearts for forever.
And that's why, and go ahead and get in your Uber, but, as it's my show, I'm going to go ahead and take the last word. As it stands, you can have a legacy character and you can put out a 6-issue trade or a 12-issue trade of that character every year in a leather-bound, gold inlay, Doug to Naples special, hardbound, looks good on a bookshelf, on a coffee table.
Bound in human skin.
Right. And you can have that, and you can put it out for Superman Clark Kent or Peter Parker Spider-Man and appeal to that audience. And maybe even get a gift for that new comic reader from his parents while putting out new materials that somebody doesn't have to go 80 years in the past to understand. Because I think that that's the biggest problem with legacy characters is that they reboot them so often, but they leave their history bound to their origins. So if you really want to understand Batman and you don't go all the way back to Detective Comics number 27, well, then you can just go ahead and kiss it goodnight because you're never going to understand Batman.
Well, right, but I haven't read Detective Comics. I like Batman. I didn't. How much is it? No.
Danny, it sounds like you shoved the phone up your ass.
Yeah. You're talking through your rectum right now.
There's nothing I can do about it.
Okay.
What does your Uber driver think?
We want to know what the Uber driver has to say.
Well, anyway, I'm gonna get going. Thank you guys for your time.
Give us a call back if you get back home before midnight.
And Church, you absolutely don't have the last word. You're wrong.
Hey, I'm right, and I'll end the show, you bitch.
Lord God Almighty.
Anyway, thanks to Denny for coming on and giving us his 2 cents. I love that kid. He's amazingly talented. Check him out on Twitter and Instagram at Atomic Denny. He has all of his commissions up. He's done book covers. He's
really good stuff.
Yeah,
really good art.
Yeah. So, and he's a young guy. He doesn't know everything. Sometimes he's wrong, like when he disagrees with me. But we
We'll
can't all
learn him eventually.
right. We can't all be right all the time. We gotta have some dissenters in the crowd that we like.
Some of us are usually wrong all the time.
But anyway,
Are
let's
you talking about me again?
let's get Becky in on it. Becky,
Absolutely.
where do you feel like you fall in this particular conversation about legacy characters and letting them be immortal for 80, 90 years at the time?
I think that it makes it very difficult to get new readers in. I think that it's like when it's like a TV show, like MASH or whatever, where they had 500 episodes and they were on the TV for 30 years, and the characters, you could just pick up the story. That was different.
Well, I mean
But,
that's barrier to entry, right? That's what you're getting at. It's a barrier to entry. It's almost like being gate kept.
Right, and you have to start over again at some point to where you can interest new readers and get a younger crowd in and whatever. And I don't think Denny's right in saying that you have to keep them around for 60 years.
Well, I think
Go
ahead.
I
SK.
kind of agree. I really want to back up Becky's point there with a personal example from when I was a teenager and Star Trek, the original series, was on TV. And the main reason why I never got into that show was the people who thought it was cool were not cool.
Right.
Right.
And you might be also getting some of that effect here with these legacy characters and the people who are so fucking into the entire history and every little detail that somebody new coming in is like, Jesus, I don't want to get in this.
Yeah, like it comes across as intimidating with some of these characters.
Right,
it's
overwhelming.
I don't think that they should get rid of the older characters at all. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they ought to, well, not totally, because, there's still an audience there for that. And you don't want to lose them. There has to be a balance to it.
Well,
somewhere.
that's why.
But the old stuff's still there. It doesn't go away.
Well, SK, let's like I said, let's talk about the middle ground that I offered in my original statement. Like I said, once every year you put out a hardbound 6 to 12 issue edition of a story written about Spider-Man, Superman, Wolverine, the Hulk, Iron Man, whoever you got contracted. And I really wanted to get somebody who knew a little bit about IP law, but I think that you hold the IP for at least a year or two in between using the character before you just give it up, right?
So like copyright law kind of thing?
Yeah.
Or
intellectual property.
Well, I mean, if you copyright, yeah, I see what you're getting at. How about this? How about fucking give it away?
Well, sure, but
just
you can't
open it.
You can't.
Up to
you can't
anybody,
ask them. You can't ask a Marvel and
DC.
You can't ask a Marvel or DC to do that because Batman has made DC Comics millions and billions and trillions and quadrillions of dollars.
So they can still. Think of it like Star Wars fan fiction, and George was really cool about actually supporting people who wanted to make their own damn movies.
Yeah.
He didn't fight him. He didn't try and take him down. He encouraged him.
Right, but as soon as Disney got their hands on that property, what happened?
That's different. That's Disney. They're assholes.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that they can continue to put out like their annual special editions, but then open the characters up and set them free for fans to take the characters in new directions and see what interesting shit comes out of that, because that is so many, amazing possibilities of talent coming along to do some cool shit than the losers they have on staff.
Right. And that's my whole argument, is I think that if we finally get to a point where we have people who care about these characters and come to the table with an actual idea for a storyline, like we're doing
Right.
a book called Storyline Showdown. Well, a series called Storyline Showdown, where Ayrton and I pick two
Torment
different.
each other.
Right, we pick two stories that we don't, we know the
No.
other person hasn't or doesn't want to read. But with the Storyline Showdown, we're exposing one another to comic books that neither one of us have ever read, and sometimes we come across stuff that we actually like. Like, I didn't think that I would actually enjoy reading Spider-Man One More Day. And I read it, and in comparison to the 4-issue comic book that I had picked to read that week, it was actually gold. Because
that was
I
the
picked...
one. That was the one I referenced earlier, SK, about Super.
I didn't hear that. You
Well,
cut out.
basically, I picked up a story called DC 1 Million, and it was 1 million years in the future. And Grant
Whoa.
Morrison is typically a fantastic writer. I mean, you probably know who Grant Morrison is, right?
Sure.
Oh, really? I figured he was popular enough to be recognized outside of comic communities in the actual author's world because of what he's actually written in novels. But okay, he's a very prolific comic book writer.
I'm pretty stupid, so.
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't gonna say it.
It's
but,
not his fault that I haven't heard of him.
Oh, okay. It's that goddamn hearing horn you got, right? You got that crack in it last 76, and you were done. But no, I think that we need a change in the comic community, and I think the best thing that the big two could do would be to set aside these characters from monthly comic book distribution and stop putting them out at $4 and $5 a piece, and go the way that Alternate did. Put out books at $1.50 or $1 a piece, which they've already proven they could do with their True Believers series and all that good shit. Put out.
Let me make
Go ahead.
Let me make your case from the creative side.
Okay.
And that is, so I go to writers' retreats and workshops and shit like that. And a lot of times, and I've been in writer groups, and one of the things that we like to do for some fucking reason is have like start lines. Right? Somebody will give a start line or a theme.
Right, and then you'll just go the fuck off on a time limit, right?
Right, exactly. And the thing about it is that these are constraints on what you write about. It's not like write whatever the hell you want for 5 minutes. It's like it has to include these elements.
Right. I give you this starting line, and you actually have to craft a story from it, not just use it as your starting point and go way the fuck off.
Exactly right. And at first, it feels like the constraint is a limitation, but it actually is not. It is, in fact, what opens the mind up to new possibilities. And what happens when you keep these old booger characters around for so long is you lose that opportunity to create new constraints. And by taking them off of the monthly rotation, putting them into their special event, special editions, and forcing the writers to address new constraints through new characters, you actually invigorate the creative process.
And that's my entire argument. That's what I want to see happen. I want to see people actually create something and, gnaw their teeth in the industry with their own creations instead of getting a storyline like Ironheart. Like, I'm not afraid to say it. When Tony Stark died, we got 2 Iron Man titles. One was an African American teenage female named Riri Williams, who
stole the armor.
Who stole the armor tech. But I mean, it would have been fine. It would have been fine if she would have had any history being, under the tutelage or, affected by Tony Stark or anything like that. But no, they shoehorned her in as a diversity hire, quote unquote, while at the same time trying to appeal to mass fans by creating the Victor Von Doom infamous Iron Man. And if you follow
they had Don Cheadle. Why didn't they?
That was War Machine.
Do something with his character, right?
Well, he was dead recently too. War Machine was taken over by the Punisher for a short time, and that was a fantastic storyline.
Okay,
but War Machine and Iron Man aren't the same character. It's kind of like Bucky and Captain America. It's a sidekick and leader. Now, let me just go off on a little bit of a tangent real quick. Ayrton, you remember when they gave the Captain America mantle to the Falcon, and he kept his wingsuit. Now, I can't be the only one that think that Marvel missed the mark in calling him the American Eagle instead of Captain America, right?
Right.
I mean,
conceptually, like,
you give him the shield, you call him the American Eagle.
Yeah,
it's fan-fucking-tastic.
Well, like I thought it was like his design was cool, his suit was cool, like having the shield and the wings and stuff. But yes, calling him Captain America was a little ridiculous.
All right, Becky is jumping out. She's got to go do a show with Jesse.
She's gonna go be lame.
We're gonna let her get her final thoughts.
Twitter.
Go ahead, Becky. You got any final thoughts on the topic besides Ayrton's fired?
I just want to fire Ayrton.
You go ahead and okay. All right, Ayrton, you're fired.
Jeez. I didn't even make a stupid joke yet.
Oh,
I mean, you showed up. That is a joke.
I mean, did you guys see the news today?
What?
Were you on it again?
No, a man who got swallowed by a whale. He got out by running as fast as he could all the way to the other end until he was all pooped out.
Jesus fucking Christ. Now you really are
You're fired.
SK, do you want to be my new co-host, man?
Man, if you think I'm an improvement, you got trouble.
Look, I'll send you the material. Do you think you can you read? I mean, that'll be an improvement.
No, my daughter can read to me.
Okay, well, then,
look at the pictures.
Yeah, right. See. Anyway, Becky, do you want to get your?
I'll talk to y'all tomorrow.
Okay, I'll see you tomorrow for Lock and Key Volume 5 and 6. Thank you for joining us.
Yep, and I'll bye.
See you tomorrow, Becky.
All right, and then there were 3. I'm gonna pour a drink for that because obviously that's what I need at this point. But no, it feels like we all pretty much agree on the idea that ongoing titles with characters that have been around for more than 50 years are pretty much a mistake, right?
Yeah.
Although, one thing that have you heard the story about how Superman helped bring down the KKK back in the day?
Yes. But
He
go
can do
ahead.
that again. It's fresh again.
No, because they just say that Superman was a symbol of the alt-right because of the patriarchy, right? I mean, how many times does Lois Lane have to Me Too this man? How does he keep getting away with it, SK?
Hey, Lois Lane is a strong, independent woman who don't need no man to save her from falling from a
No,
skyscraper.
that's Wonder Woman. Lois Lane turns into a puddle.
Yeah, well, you know, they don't call him Man of Steel for nothing.
Oh!
Heyo.
SK, do you have any previous history with comic books? Have you?
You know, I was really more of a Mad Magazine kind of kid growing up.
Yeah.
Mostly because
Well,
it was a better value, and I had very, very, very limited resources.
well, do you want a little bit of a history lesson on why Mad Magazine actually became a thing?
Yeah, was it tied into National Lampoon at all? Seems like there's some connection.
That isn't something that I'm aware of, but
Okay.
there was a movement in the 40s called the Comic Code Authority.
Right.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
from the 30s, I don't know if I'm not sure how old you are. From your avatar, I'm guessing early 50s.
I'm 60.
You're
I'm
60.
60.
Okay.
Fucking 60, man.
So 60, which means
Man, you don't look
were,
a day over 64.
That's
I
right.
know, and I don't feel. You know, the problem is I still feel, you know, physically, except for my torn ligaments, feel like, you
Now,
know,
does
like
that
I'm
include
still
your
in my
penis? On the torn ligaments?
20s. I, you know, I'm not going to address that directly, except that to say that reverse cowgirl can be dangerous.
Is that because you can't address it directly? Oh man, I like this guy.
For you know, physical therapy is grueling, and Kiki and Bambi will be here in an hour.
All right. Well, that's what the physical therapy tag team from the ECW is now called these days, Kiki and Bambi.
Well, I mean, you saw church. Me and Jesse decided we're going to do a show about grading hookers. So,
Well, I mean, if I have to show up and run OBS, I'm going to talk over both of you and mute you both all the time. So that's fine. I mean, it'll really be a show about cooking bagels, but neither one of you will know that. Oy vey, goyim.
Grading hookers. That sounds like a knitting show.
No, you're grading the hook needles, right?
Yeah.
No. Anyway, the Comic Code Authority was founded because back in the 30s and 40s, before the Comic Code Authority came about, people started getting worried about the amount of crime that was depicted in comic books, the amount of horror stories that were being told.
I saw this on a documentary a couple of months ago.
Right.
There was some discussion about it.
Right. So the comic book industry came together and they basically said, you know what, we'll just you know,
self-regulate.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll self-regulate like the movie and video game industry did.
Right.
So they formed the Comic Code Authority, and you couldn't depict drug use, you couldn't depict massive blood loss, you couldn't depict criminals winning. Right. Cops couldn't be dirty, any of that shit. Well, the thing is...
So, fantasy.
Right. Well, the thing is it only pertained to comic books at a comic book format. So if you printed a magazine, you didn't have to adhere to the code. So all the horror comics turned into horror
That's what it was about. It was the horror. Yeah, the show was about, I wish I remember what the documentary was about, because it was about the horror comics.
Well, the thing is the people that did the most horror comics were EC Comics. And EC Comics actually became the company that started publishing Mad Magazine as their main source of income. So EC Comics as a comic publisher was put under by the Comic Code because of their horror comics. But because of the Comics Code, they started up Mad Magazine as their cash cow, and then it turned into Mad Magazine, Mad TV, and then their horror anthology magazines, which all of us bought
I
for
loved
$1 a
Mad
piece.
Magazine as a kid. It was right up my 12-year-old. That was
Right.
right in my wheelhouse, right?
Right. But that's
Yeah.
just a little bit of history from me to you. That's a little bit of behind the scenes on comic books.
Awesome.
So
Yeah, the thing that I liked,
if it wasn't for
the
self
humor,
censorship in comic books, you wouldn't have Mad Magazine as a kid.
but there would have been something else, right?
Well, there always
Probably.
is, right? I mean,
Right,
there's
possibly.
always something that comes in to fill the void. I
Yeah,
mean, Heavy Metal would have done it if Mad didn't, right?
right. Yeah.
I mean, Heavy Metal, ElfQuest, Conan. Conan was the magazine for a while because he cut
Conan.
people's heads off.
Yeah.
Um,
Conan. I just rewatched Conan.
well, let's pivot into a different area that you'll probably be better versed in than we are. And let's talk about publishing, because Becky brought this up in the pre-show call, and her and Denny got into it pretty hard. But she brought up the idea that as an author, self-publishing through Amazon, you can't really get in stores because stores won't buy your books because there's no return policy. But if you go through Ingram
Right.
and Sparks,
So
they have a
there's-
return
yes.
policy, and you can get books in stores through them, which works with Amazon. So it's all kind of a big circle. And just
Say
to
Spark?
Ingram and Sparks.
Yes. Yes.
Well, to circle that back into comics, there's only one real distributor in comics. Like, you have a lot of publishers and you have a lot of publishing houses, but you have diamond distributors, and they're the main ones that get your books into any retail and or mom and pop store.
Ooh.
Right, and it's a monopoly.
And I would guess that Ingram and KDP don't do comic book format.
No,
Just a
but you
guess.
c-
Just
but
a
you-
guess.
But that's why I say that when you put out the Superman book, you put it out in a hardbound, leather-bound, gold leaf edition, and
Mhm.
you sell it to bookstores, you sell it to Walmart, you sell it to Target. You reach a broader audience with it, right? I
Sure.
mean, why
Sure.
don't you want it in everywhere you can get it? Why do you just want to keep it in a store, like a format of store that is just falling apart?
Exactly. Why don't you want it on Kindle?
Right. Well, a lot of
Honestly,
times,
why
well,
not?
piracy is a thing in the comic community.
Yeah. And
What?
publishing. It's a big
Right.
You
Right.
mean the Dread Pirate Roberts, right?
Well, let's just be real for a second. If somebody didn't buy it in the first place, how is anybody pirating it?
True.
And if
One
somebody
person
reads
bought
it, if they read it and they like it, there's a 90% chance they're going to reach out and find a way to support you one way or another, whether it's through buying the actual copy or
Yeah.
buying your fucking t-shirt or Patreoning you or whatever.
Absolutely. I've seen people, authors, really freaking out when they
Well-
find their book on pirate sites, and others are like, eh.
Well,
they're
let's look
reading
at,
it.
Well, think about it like this. HBO bragged that they had the most pirated series on the internet, which was Game of Thrones.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
the thing is people are watching it and they're interested, and that's going to drag more people to your fucking platform than were there
Well,
before.
and the people who are reading the pirated version, they weren't going to buy it anyway.
No. And the fact that
They
they're
might buy the
reading it,
second
they
one,
might.
like you say.
Well, here's the thing. Even if they read a pirated version, they might tell somebody about it at the fucking water cooler, and that person might
Right.
buy it.
Right.
And
Right.
they never would have told that person about it if they never had the chance to read it because they weren't going to buy it anyway.
I really don't think that the people who are reading the books off of the pirated sites are honestly, I don't think they're eating into sales.
Well, let me put it like this. And as a comic reviewer, this is gonna put a little bit of a black mark on my record, but I've been known to pirate a big two comic or two here. Now, if I read it and I liked it,
Oh my god!
I know, right? If I read it and I liked it, I went to my
I
local
think I
store
might get the vape.
and I put it on my pull list. If I read it and I didn't like it, I deleted it. I don't share pirated comic books, but I don't invest $5 in something that might be a piece of shit. But if I invest 10 minutes of time into finding a pirated copy of it and I like it, then I'll go invest $100 in it to make sure that I have the whole year's worth of series. Right?
Right?
And, that's just how I do things. Now, sometimes if I run across it, because there's nothing wrong with taking $10 in your pocket to your local comic shop and buying a trade comic book that you've never heard of and reading it and liking it. And that's how I got into the entire Valiant storyline of comics. Now, they fucked up when they started publishing shit like Fate, but, we'll talk about that another day. Now, I liked Fate, but it was a total SJW move. But we'll get there one day. But from a publishing standpoint, you have Diamond Distributors, and they pretty much hold the stranglehold on distributing comics to local stores, to Books A Million, to retail outlets, to video game stores, any of that shit. And they don't have a viable return policy. So, whereas, like Ayrton and Becky were talking about earlier, if you sell 100 Sports Illustrated to your local Bilo or Winn-Dixie or Publix or Kroger's or Sam's Club or whatever.
Man, Kroger and Sam's Club is the only place that I've actually been to around here. Anyways.
But if you sell 100 Sports Illustrated to that company, then the publisher will say, well, you only sold 40 of those 100 issues, so send us the 60 covers back and we'll give you a credit for your next order.
Yeah.
And you rip the covers off and you trash the comic books or the magazines.
Right.
Well, with comic books, you don't have that return policy. They end up in what's called a back issue bin. And you take a $3 or $4 or $5 comic book and you have to cut the price in half.
Sit on it for 20 years till it's worth something.
No, not even that.
No.
You try and get your cost back out of it by putting it in a half off bin.
Okay, sure.
And that doesn't even work half the time. So 90% of the time, even nowadays, if you buy, like it used to be, you bought 20 of a comic book and didn't have enough. Nowadays, if you buy 3, you might be ordering too many. So that's how far the industry has fallen, and I think creating new characters, I think that retiring legacy characters, I think that introducing new blood and bringing on talent for these legacy characters when you do publish stories with them, I think all of these things come into play. And
so give me a number on what's the comic book, just the comic book, the actual, print business. What is that worth annually?
The comic book print industry?
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's take Marvel.
Yeah, and
Comics.
I don't mean like, selling the movie rights and shit like that.
Ugh, I don't know. Dead air.
Shut up, Ayrton. You talk too much.
I mean, is it big enough that the distributor wants to? Who can print?
No. The sales figures have been dropping for 3 years straight.
Okay. Gee, what a surprise!
Yeah. back in 1987, comics were worth $10 million. Like as a, just as an industry.
Whoa, that's all?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
But
it.
that's in
Just some
87.
pocket change.
Okay. So today it's 47 billion because of inflation.
No. As of July 2006, comics were worth $7 million.
Oh my God. So even with inflation, it's gone down.
Even with inflation, it's gone down from 87. So over 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's harsh.
Well, over 20 years, it dropped $3 million as opposed to rising at all.
Wow.
And those are just like small time estimates.
Wow. So it's not a huge. I
Uh,
mean, if it
hold-
wasn't for Hollywood, comic books would be
SK,
dead.
hold up real quick. Kelly Evans, you
Yeah.
said your books. Do you do comics, Kelly? If you do, DM me on Twitter at Church Failure, and I would love to review them. Anyway, go ahead, SK.
Yeah, that's such a tiny business. I mean, that's like what Amazon spends on packing peanuts.
Oh no, okay. No, it is, but the thing.
And my point is that they should be scrambling for new opportunities and not choking them off, right?
Oh,
When you're in this kind of a position industry wise, you need to be innovating like fuck.
Let me put it like this. Like that's just Marvel and DC, right? Now
Yeah, but that's
you hear
how
those.
much are they? They're like 80%, right?
God no, they might be
No?
30.
Okay.
Yeah, there are over 400
Cool.
different comic book publishers. I mean, you have what they
That's-
call the Big Four, the Big Eight, or the Big Six, or however you quantify it. But there are over 400 comic book publishers out there, regardless of how good they are. Well, yeah,
Wow. But that's true of
of any industry, right?
any industry. True. Yeah.
I mean,
But it's a really small pie.
right? But you got to think like if every one of those 400 industries are putting out, let's call a median 25 titles, until you get up to the top 10%, which are putting out 50. But I mean, quantify that by 400 times 25 titles. So
Jeez.
that's a shitload of comic books, right?
That's a bunch.
So, I mean, it's obviously an industry that has the reach to touch everyone. I mean, comics. Yeah. Yeah, 15
you've ever read, okay?
That is scary shit.
15-cent price tag, sons. Donny Osmond.
Oh my god.
And I just paid $40 for 2 comic books from That Umbrella Guy. The Case of the Littlest Umbrella and The Goody Bird, which is a satire of Comicsgate.
See, this is exactly what they need to be e-published. Especially these smaller.
The anti-Comicsgate people, like, are you familiar with the name Nick Rekieta? SK?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
That-
I am.
That is
Yeah.
my.
That's the first thing we referenced that he actually understands.
The lawyer guy, right?
Yeah. The drunk lawyer.
Yeah, he was a great guest on the show when I first started with Dead Man.
Right. Rekieta is fantastic. He is the nicest person you will ever meet in real life.
Yeah.
Unless you piss him
Kind of
off.
smart the way lawyers tend to be.
But the thing about Nick Rekieta is that he has been doing the Weeb Wars stuff with Vic Mignogna, and they have the whole back and forth going in that regard, right?
Right?
Well,
Right?
with his content, like, he's picked up some dissenters over Twitter and stuff like that, but that's the same way that Comicsgate goes. So Comicsgate and Weebors have the same people that are against us, so to speak, in people like Renfamous and Mars Girl and shit like that.
Oh yeah, they've been trolling Deadman.
Right.
Yep.
I went to bat
Yeah.
for Dead Man and got a 12-hour ban for it.
Cool.
Yeah. So we by the way, if you're not following me on Twitter, I am 7 to 8 followers away from 1,000. So just think about it, girl.
Hey, and
ain't,
you should go follow me and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like blues music.
Well,
I'm gonna do some showing too.
Not until he gets us a new intro, which he's been promising me for a month now. So
Hey,
once that happens,
I have not been able to get to the studio. I've been busy
look.
as fuck.
All right, I just followed both your asses, so shut the fuck up about it.
All right. Ayrton, will you, Kelly? They're in the description of the chat. I'm gonna see if Ayrton will throw them in the chat for me. Will you throw our Twitter handles for me, you, and SK Barrett in the chat?
Yeah.
But from a publication standpoint, SK, how do you think that comics could benefit from a better return policy and or a less, I don't know, sequential publishing for the IPs like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, shit like that? Anything over 50 years, you basically have a lottery, and say Mark Waid, Jonathan Hickman, Grant Morrison,
Yeah.
Frank Miller, S.K. Barrett, the Mr. Deadman, Becky, and Ayrton all get to write Captain America, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, whatever. But you get one a year, and it just runs for however long it needs to run.
Well,
Ayrton,
yeah, you could
my,
even, I mean, honestly, you could.
My at is at church failure, you motherfucker.
Oh, it auto-corrected.
Sending the fans a misdirection. That's awesome.
Yeah. I fixed it. It's fine. He's been fired for 20 minutes now, so it's good.
Hey, an autofill thing came up for. I didn't realize that was your channel tag, not your not your Twitter. So I just clicked on it.
It tries to fill in who's in the chat, right?
Right. I mean, excuses and whatnot. That's fine.
Come on, I'm on a rotary telephone. Give me a break.
Motherfucker, at this point I'm convinced you're on a tin can with a string in it.
We're trying to raise money to get Jesse off of a 56K modem.
Is he still using free AOL CDs?
Yes. Oddly enough, they still work. I don't know.
Hey,
they probably go to the Ukraine or something now.
I'm sending carrier pigeons with pre-recordings on a USB of my voice answering all of these to church.
like Larry Fishburne and John Wick.
You have no idea how hard it is to get this set up through a dual Skype setup. I got Ayrton playing through my iPad. I'm doing this live. I don't even know how to press his fucking play button. It's just bullshit. I quit. I'm done.
So here's the thing. One of the things that Amazon was really good about in the early days with books was and videos, back when they were actually selling physical media, was allowing people to find and discover new content creators that they would never run across in a bookstore or video store, right? And it's called the long tail of media, where you have the bulk, you have your bestsellers as the short, fat head of the snake,
Right.
But then there's the rest of the world makes up this giant long tapering tail. And in the early days, Amazon was amazing for allowing people to discover new content creators that they'd never heard of, but that they might enjoy. They're kind of lost their way since those days. But it's still better. I still think that it's better than for comic books. It's better than what they got going now. Yes, the return policy. If without they don't change the return, how have they not changed their return policy when this distributor, when their entire industry is crumbling around them because of it? That takes some moxie.
Well, I think the issue is like you were saying, like if you take into consideration that you have companies like Dark Horse and Image and even IDW, which is basically going bankrupt, but you have these independent publishers that put out original stories, original ideas, or licensed property comics or whatever. Like, have you ever seen a comic book that was based on a motion picture or whatever?
No.
Based on the original novel. Well, you can find them. Like, just look up Batman. Batman
Okay.
and Robin motion picture comic.
Yeah. So going the other direction, right?
Well,
Instead of a movie based on a comic, it's a comic based on a movie.
right. Well, I mean, you have that kind of media for everything. Like, how many times have
Right.
you seen a book written about the storyline of a movie, or vice versa? A movie written about.
Not very often.
Really?
Not very movie.
Go to a grocery store sometime.
No, what? Oh! I see what you're getting. At. Yes, yeah.
I mean, every time they write a movie, there's a book about it. Every time they write a book, there's a movie about it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, you're totally right. I was kind of thinking about the Jim Cameron movie, The Abyss, where Orson Scott Card wrote the accompanying book, but he wrote it at the same time the movie was being created. So, and he actually got ahead of the movie production and contributed to the story of the movie so that they really meshed up. But that's really rare.
Right. Well, I mean, they do the similar thing for comic books. Like anytime they made a Batman movie, there's a comic book adaptation of that movie. And
Sure.
There's a novelization of that movie.
Right. Absolutely.
Well,
I totally forgot about those.
well,
since I've never,
because nobody reads them.
I have never paid for one of those in my life or read it.
Maybe not, but normies do out the ass. They're some of the best-selling books of the year. Yeah, normies. Normies are people that don't understand that they're being shilled to every second of every day.
How's that normal? I guess that would be normal. Yeah.
Normies are people that just buy shit because the TV told them they needed to buy it.
Yep. Gotcha.
Obey, buy, consume.
Right. They're the ones that thought 1984 was a guidebook. There's a SoundCloud remix of Dick Masterson's Black Pill rant that I might use as the outro for this show. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and look it up before we sign off. But no, there's a whole Black Pill rant where Dick Masterson says that everything in the media is a distraction to keep you from worrying about your fucking money. But
I don't have to worry about my money because I don't have any. It's easy that way.
Well, I mean, you're an author. What do you want?
I mean, refrigerator boxes, those, the price on those has kind of gone up lately, hasn't it, with inflation?
Look, I live under a bridge. I have some cardboard and some tinfoil, and motherfucker, I live like a king.
I have a 6-man tent, dudes. I am living in
Oh
style.
shit!
Damn. Did you steal that when the Gander Mountain was going out of business or
No, but
something?
he didn't make it under the bridge.
No,
He's living
no,
right
I
on
don't
the
know.
outside of the bridge, so he still gets rained on. So he needs a tent.
That's why I need the tent. But I do get to ask people crossing the bridge 3 questions.
Well,
What's
I mean,
your favorite color?
right?
Yes, that's the first one. Yeah.
But no, SK, like I was saying, as far as publishing and distributors go, like you pretty much understand that Diamond as a distributor basically is a cancer because of their monopoly.
And if there was more money in this business, somebody else would have replaced them.
Well, there's a lot of money in the business. I mean, look at the idea of Disney picking up Marvel Comics as a property so that they could make
Yeah,
movies
but
off of their IP.
the distributor doesn't get that money though.
No, that's fine, but the IP still makes the money. It's still Marvel Comics that's owned by Disney making the money.
What I'm saying is if there was more money in distribution, then somebody would have come along to replace them.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like saying that. Well, it's kind of like saying that you work for a publisher to put a novel out every year, right? Like you as an author got a job with a publisher, and the publisher said all you have to do is every 12 months give us a fucking novel. Like you just have to give us a novel into editing every 8 months,
Mm-hmm.
and you
Suckers.
did that. Well, yeah, and you did that. But every character in your novels belonged to that company, so that company said, "Well, you know, his novels are shit."
No author would do that shit.
But
They do in the comics industry.
Look up the name Mark Waid on Wikipedia. You could probably look up the word cuckold and just click on the subtext Mark Waid.
Man, if he's topping that list,
no, the top of that list is his super lawyer Mark Zaid. He literally hired a lawyer with the same, like, similar rhyming name to him. He is Mark Waid. His super lawyer is Mark Zaid, and he is.
It's really just him and a mustache.
Yeah, he's defending.
Okay, I do not want to click on it. You have to tell me why the second, the second choice in the list from Google under Mark Waid is Mark Waid tattoo. I am not clicking on that shit.
Oh shit! I have to look
now
this
you
up
have
now.
to.
No, I'm gonna look it up on stream. Fuck that. I'm gonna go into OBS right now and open up a fucking browser. Fuck this. New browser. Create new, yes. www.google.com. Okay. There we go. Full screen here.
Oh, it's a different Mark Waid, and he's a tattoo artist.
Oh, well.
No.
I'm just gonna. Well,
damn it!
I thought it was going to be a
disappointment.
You're fired, SK.
Tattoo of a black dick going inside a flower or something.
Actually, a lot of these tattoos are flowers.
Anyway,
I'm not even joking.
SK, just to fill you in. Comicsgate is a movement. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's independent comic creators moving to crowdfunding platforms like Indiegogo, mainly Indiegogo.
Cool. Good for them.
To finance and publish their work independently of larger companies.
Good.
Mainly because a creator named Ethan Van Sciver, a heavily politicized conservative, had been, quote unquote, bullied out of the industry. Not bullied out, but, asked to leave.
Blacklisted?
No, because I can't imagine that Marvel or DC would ever say, no, if Ethan Van Sciver wants to draw our book, we're going to tell him to go fuck himself. No, this 26-year veteran that just made $250,000 on a comic book about a fucking frog. Yeah, we're gonna tell him he can't come work for us because we hate money.
Some communist bullshit right there is what that
Right.
is.
I can't imagine that would ever happen, but because he was working at DC and some people raised a big stink about him voting for Trump and wearing a MAGA hat occasionally.
Wow.
He moved away from the industry independently rather than cause any strife on his own
Right.
accord because he's a decent human fucking being, right? Well, people couldn't handle the fact that he was a decent human being and wanted to provide for his goddamn family, and decided to put out a comic about a frog on Indiegogo and raised $250,000 for one comic book, one fucking issue, 86 pages, one book, $250,000.
Whoa. This was just the crowdfunding to create the book.
Right. This isn't
Right.
how much Zenescope's going to make off of publishing and distributing their own version of Cyberfrog. This isn't how much he's going to make off of the reprints of Cyberfrog. This is the initial printing of the first issue. $250,000
Nice.
at least, or $750,000, excuse me.
That must have made some people's heads explode.
Yeah.
Well, Mark Waid is a comic book veteran who has been in the industry for, I would say, at least 2 decades. And there was a gentleman named Richard Meyer, also known as Diversity in Comics, aka your boy Zach. And he had some opinions on some comic books that he used to make in his car, making videos with his cell phone. And the professional creators of those comic books that he had opinions on decided that they would harass him and say, well, you've never written your own comic book. How can you judge us? So he wrote
that is such 7th grade bullshit.
Right, but get this. Richard Meyer wrote his own comic book called Jawbreakers. SK, do me a favor. Pull up a browser. Go to eBay. Type in Jawbreakers. Tell me what the cheapest one you find is.
Well, Jawbreakers comic.
Right.
Yeah, because there was that 80s Mean Girl movie, right?
And the candy.
Yeah, and the candy.
Oh, that, right.
But type in Jawbreakers comic on eBay and tell me what the cheapest one you find is.
So Jawbreakers comic is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. That's pretty good. $60.
Right. For a comic book.
175, 320.
For a comic book.
That's substantial.
You can't find
That's
it
a
in a
lot of
store.
fucking money.
You can't find this book in a store. It wasn't published in local comic stores.
Who printed? How did he do this?
He crowdfunded it, printed it himself, and sent it to people who crowdfunded it.
Oh man!
For
That's
$40
cool.
an issue, $30 an issue, $20 an issue. I just paid $80 for me and Ayrton to both have a copy of The Littlest Umbrella to read on stream. That comic book is heading towards $100K for a 26 to 36 page book.
Awesome.
Right.
I mean,
and that's where the industry is going because they don't want conservatives in the industry. But the thing is I think
because
well,
they hate money.
Well,
because they're communists.
Well, it's not even that. It's that they're scared of repercussions from people who disagree with them politically. They're scared of repercussions from people who look at them and say, well, you're a Nazi because your artist for Green Lantern voted for Trump.
Here's the thing about those so-called repercussions. There's such a small minority of these cry bullies. They try to sound like they represent like so many people, and they really don't. But they make a lot of fucking noise.
Right, and that's the problem. Like, that's the reason you have the Mark Wade, Richard Meyer lawsuit. Like, that's what Rickade is covering in Comic Game. Richard Meyer was shitted out of publication from Antarctic Press in Texas of Jawbreakers. He had to crowdfund it, publish it, and ship it himself because Antarctic Press dropped out of a contract with him. Because he was associated with Richard
pussies.
Meyer, and because they're cuckolds, because they have no teeth, and they drink Soylent and eat shoes. Shane, I'm talking to you, you fucking bitch. I'm talking to you, Shane.
If they had the balls to drink
Basically.
Soylent, that'd be something. They drink weak tea, chamomile tea.
With soy milk, not even whole milk.
They have enough
soy milk.
They have enough soy in them that Chinese restaurants hire them to sit in saunas, and they collect the sweat to use as the soy sauce in their cooking.
They don't even have the balls to sweat MSG, man.
Exactly.
Well, the thing is, like I was saying, I mean, we live in a society where you have, like, SK, have you followed the Marvel movies at all?
They're so fucking boring anymore, Jesus.
Right, but there's 21 of them, so I mean, you've seen some and liked some, right?
I've seen a bunch of them, yeah.
And you liked a handful, right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Well, there have been 21
maybe
so far.
Like the first Iron Man was interesting, right?
Now, did you see Captain Marvel?
No, but I wrote a review of the trailer.
Well,
the trailer.
Well, you're a good person because Captain Marvel was horseshit.
Oh, it was awful.
Well, my point was of the article, which I wrote for a website called The 405, and I do occasional articles for them, actually just reviewing trailers. And I did a compare and contrast with Sigourney Weaver, female heroine leading an action movie franchise.
Now you mean like needle heroin, right? Because I would totally shoot her up into my veins. I mean, I would be her bicycle seat if I could.
You would put her in a spoon? I'm not following this analogy.
What, be Sigourney Weaver's bicycle seat? You wouldn't? At 60 years old? Fuck you. Don't lie to me.
The main point of my, to summarize my review was that Sigourney has sand. She has gravitas. She has character.
She has
and
grit.
Whoever this grit.
She has muster.
This soft cheese chick, Brie, does not.
No.
Does not.
No, she doesn't.
Doesn't compare very well at all. And you know what's interesting is they're almost the same person. I mean, lots of acting credits, same age, similar height. I mean, Sigourney's a tall woman, but Brie's not that far behind. So she's not some, Dorothy Hamill, right? She's got some height to her.
The difference is one was propped up for fucking virtue points, and the other one actually had to earn her place in history.
And Sigourney's training was some serious acting chops, serious acting, not Hallmark Hall of Fame type of shit.
Well, not even that. I mean,
very special episodes.
Well, for anybody else, Aliens would have been a walk in the park, right? Like,
how do you?
You don't think so?
How do you mean that? How do you mean walk in the park?
Well, for anybody else, like if they would have used a primary male actor in the lead, like if they would have chosen Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone,
Right.
it would have
And there's some urban legend that says that it was written as a male character
Right.
originally.
right. That's what I'm saying.
Although
But for a woman to carry that role and be as dominant in it that she was,
in
like,
in what 1980? Jesus fucking Christ, 79, 80, something like that.
the original Aliens.
Yeah, it was way back.
You on this co-host, or am I doing this? On my own?
I'm on it.
All right.
Oh, Jesus, I'll look it up.
1979, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
So
So what a lot of millennials think of as the Stone Age is
I mean, it's a point that I make on my show a lot. Like, one of my favorite comic series of all time is The Secret Wars. And that was one of the major team-ups of 1987 in Marvel Comics, right? So, as one of the major team-ups in 1987, you have a black Captain, or a black Iron Man. You have a black Captain Marvel. You have the Wasp as the leader of the Avengers. So, I mean, you have all of that going for you to begin with. You have a disabled person gaining the ability to walk again. So, you have ableism fucking mentioned.
right because it was cheaper than putting ramps in.
Jesus Christ, SK. I knew I liked you. Can I fire you? Is that okay? You're not disabled, right?
I'm not. Well, mentally.
Well, not physically.
I mean, I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that, and you're fired.
Well, I mean, who wouldn't want to walk again instead of wheeling around?
That's what
Hey,
she
that's
said.
ableist. That's some ableist bullshit, and I disavow.
Sure, go ahead. Run a poll. Run a poll first. See who
Wait,
wouldn't
this
rather.
isn't Stream.me. We can't run a poll. What's wrong with you?
No, I just mean in your daily life when you run across somebody in a wheelchair. So, would you rather be in a wheelchair?
Oh, run a poll through somebody in a wheelchair? Come on, SK.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That's fucked up.
What are you, a Nazi or something?
What did Vlad drop off the call?
The Impaler or the fucker?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, that's the answer. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm totally gonna go around to random people I see in wheelchairs and ask them if they want to walk again.
Because you don't have to. That's my point. Anyway, wow, that was a diversion.
I mean, I told everybody that this was just gonna fucking go south of the border here.
Damn, now I want Mexican food.
What were we talking about?
Publishing and
Oh,
Diamond holding a
wheelchair
monopoly,
ramp was
basically.
the last thing I remember.
Oh, yeah. The 87 characters who were diverse beyond what anybody today can even imagine.
Well, I mean, let's talk about how publishing used to work back when comics actually sold. Because they used to sell 1 million copies of Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen at the newsstands.
Just Jimmy Olsen sold 1 million copies?
Well, Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen as a comic book title, yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, he turned into a turtle monster and all kinds of shit. I mean, if you want to read some outrageous bullshit, read some Golden Age comic books. Like, hit me up after the show. I'll suggest some titles.
I am not drinking enough for this show.
By all means, go fix a drink.
Yeah,
we have what? We have 25 minutes left in the show. Go fix yourself a drink.
Jesus.
Yeah, we forgot to give you that warning.
I finished one bottle of wine. I'm going to need more.
Oh no, you have to buy the case of wine for this show.
I usually use the hard stuff, but I just got this really cheap Pinot.
Oh no, the Aldi and my local town sells a case of 6 bottles of wine for $18.
That makes me kind of puke a little just thinking about it.
Suck it, Costco.
Well, I'm just saying, if you're gonna be a drunk, do it in style, right?
I normally go for the hard stuff because it's so much faster that way.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely a bourbon guy. I've been drinking Benchmark since we started the show, so. I mean, if you can't tell, I'm doing well.
Before that.
I mean, I've basically been drinking Benchmark since 4 a.m. yesterday, so.
Yeah.
We have some really nice local distillers up here in the Northwest.
Oh, the Northwest, you say?
Yeah.
In Cut Country.
Sorry, I missed that, Sniper.
I said in Cut Country. You know, Seattle, California.
You know, we have a lot of interesting types up here. But you know what? I was actually born here. I've lived other places. I was born here in the Seattle area, and
now
the
question.
topography is so amazing that I really miss it when I'm away.
Now I have a question. So in Wizard of Oz, the midgets saying follow the yellow brick road. How does that translate to shit covered roads?
I'm not in San Francisco.
I don't
He
know.
didn't say he was
Whatever,
in India.
Seattle's pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, I was downtown the last week, jury duty. True story. I was on jury duty for a week, and
They let you on a jury.
I know. I was like, you guys are not asking
Objection!
the right questions. You guys are not asking me the right questions. You did not want me on the jury. At least one of the teams didn't want me. We do not have the problem that San Francisco has. I will say that. And we have, the topography, it's just such a beautiful place and so varied. It's just amazing. And I miss it when I'm not here.
I feel the same way about the South when I don't hear a gunshot for 2 days in a row.
Kind of the opposite here. Like if you set off a firecracker, the police come.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, if you set off a firecracker here, you just get shot 14 times.
I'm gonna tell you a true story. 2 houses down from me.
Hold on real quick. Hold on real quick. The following story is definitely a lie.
Verifiable.
Remember, just say allegedly after everything.
Anyway,
2 doors down from me one day the street was blocked off by crime scene tape and
in Minecraft
vehicles. And I live in a very quiet suburb of Seattle. I mean, literally, I'm outside right now. That's how quiet it is. And there were, dozens of emergency vehicles.
Well, I mean, when nobody has a gun, how are you actually going to get shot?
Well, so this elderly couple that was 2 doors down had been letting a homeless woman camp in their backyard.
Okay.
And rookie mistake.
Rookie for, retired people. Weird. this homeless woman, who oddly enough turned out to be crazy,
Imagine my
Who'd have
shock.
thunk it?
right? Went into their kitchen one morning and stabbed them both.
Holy
With
shit.
a knife from their own kitchen?
Yes, yes.
Oh my God! How does that happen?
Well, it starts by letting a crazy homeless woman camp in your backyard. That's step one.
Wait. Are you telling me that the homeless woman that sleeps beside the dumpster that I take mini bottle shots at on my lunch break at work might be crazy and might kill me one day?
There is statistical evidence to support that hypothesis.
That's homelessest. But no.
Yeah, there are a lot of people here who live in fantasy worlds where they think that the way they view the world makes it so.
Have you
That
written,
is true.
Have you written fiction, SK?
I've written some short fiction, yeah.
Well, you said that your main writing project that you talked about at the beginning of the show was nonfiction. Have you written any fiction
True.
of that caliber?
I'm in the process of working on a fictional so.
Let me ask you this question.
I'm not convinced you're real yet, so
He's
we'll
not.
go with it.
He's not. I'm just throwing my voice to another Skype call.
Oh, I
Okay.
figured it was just you and me having a drunken hallucination at the same time.
Well, you're not even drunk, so I'm the only one hallucinating. Both of you are fake, as far as I'm concerned. But let me posit this to you, SK.
Sure.
Take your fictional character into consideration,
Right.
and let's close our eyes and pretend we're 45 years into the future. Okay,
Right.
you're getting ready to retire because you're the ripe old age of 105 years old.
Getting
like
close to retirement.
like you do under capitalist America. you retire when you're dead.
I get to retire 3 years after the statue is, unveiled.
Right. Which will never be unveiled because you won't be able to afford it when you're buried because you're a fucking author.
I'm not paying for it.
Well, nobody else is either, buddy. I hate to tell you.
You don't know.
I'll do one of those. I'll do one of those cheesy like clay sculptures like you do in elementary school.
I mean, I'll pee on the grave
Right,
if he tells me where it's at, because it's definitely going to be unmarked because he's an author. He gets buried in the same fucking plot that artists do, and I guarantee you, there's no headstones there. But no, take your character and just close your eyes and fast forward 45 years into the future, and tell me.
I might fall over if I.
Well, just tell me that if you put your character 45 years into the future, that you would be happy putting him into somebody else's hands or her. We live in a Me Too era. It could be her.
Listen. So I also do, as a hobby, I do art. I draw, and my oldest daughter came to me and said,
Wait,
her boyfriend want to sell my
You've
art.
reproduced.
And
I
was
don't
like,
believe this. I've listened to you for almost an hour and a half now, and the idea that you've reproduced is just beyond me.
Twice?
I can't believe that someone would let them actually,
Well,
receive your vessel.
well, he sells his sperm. That's how.
Bullshit that if you sell your sperm, you're on the hook for child support. I just got to say. totally missing my point.
Well, so did your woman apparently, but who's counting?
Oh my god.
Aren't you glad you did
So
this?
my daughter, my oldest daughter,
Okay, all right, I'm
And her
on
boy-
board for
her
this.
boyfriend.
My
Just-
suspension of disbelief is in
play along.
effect. Let's go.
Yeah,
Play along,
right,
okay?
right. We're on our
We were-
third
we were
Spider-Man
talking
title
about
of the month.
Anyway. They wanted bulls. Fuck, I don't know if I can do that. So, I mean, that's just the creative mentality is, this comes from deep inside, or maybe not always deep, but, it.
That's what she said.
When a creative person, yeah, it's just the tip of creativity.
Right, tipping is not just.
It comes from, the people who are deeply creative. The things that they create really become a part of them. I mean, they come from, they're like creative babies. You see that analogy often with creative people. Like, these are our, creative offspring, so to speak. And it's really, really difficult to let them go. Some people, author-wise, Tom Clancy was really difficult. He would sell his stories to Hollywood, and then he'd bitch about it, what they did with him. And
Well,
I totally
mean,
get that.
that's kind of normal, right? I mean, if you look at I mean, pretty much anything. You've got George Lucas bitching about what they did with Star Wars. You've got Tolkien's estate bitching about what they did with Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
And John Grisham might be an opposite case. There were people who were asking him about, oh my God, how do you think, what do you feel about what they did with your latest book? And he'd be like, you know what? They bought the rights to do whatever the fuck they want with it.
Pretty
so
much.
he had a rather different take on it. He said it's they paid for that right.
Right.
And so which is kind of a healthy way to look at it, actually. It may be difficult for a lot of creative people to adopt that viewpoint, but it's pretty healthy.
Well, I think it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the show. Like, when you have an IP, when you have a character, like we were talking about, you were working on a fictional storyline. It's going to involve some original characters.
Right.
Well, imagine tomorrow you croak. Are you just going to let fucking... Well, are you going to let Ayrton, my co-host, take over your original characters, or are you going to take him to the grave with you?
Definitely should.
I'm willing all of that shit to Walt Disney.
Oh, well,
I mean, actually Walt.
Yeah, the Frozen guy
When
is
they
going to be...
unfreeze us.
I mean, you're going to get Frozen right beside him, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have some long chats in the cryogenics lab.
But the thing is your fictional characters are yours, right? Like, you don't want me or Ayrton writing them. You don't want Becky writing them in 5 years.
No, I mean, yeah, you have the right to the characters you create. Absolutely. As much as the work.
In 40 years, when your character falls into public domain, once you've been long dead because you started your Zen Garden 10 years ago, and your blood pressure skyrocketed when you started raking rocks on a regular basis.
Damn it! Why is nothing growing in this Zen garden?
It might be that I didn't put any soil or seed down, but God damn it, these rocks should sprout.
I saw the same amount of rocks. This is bullshit. These aren't growing into rock plants.
I don't think they understand the word garden.
But the thing is like you can let it fall into public domain, and then 40 or 50
Yeah.
years, somebody can pick up Doc Samson, and they can say,
Yeah.
you know what, Doc Samson's a hell of a character. Let's do a Doc
Yeah.
Samson and Tarzan story where they team up, and we
Or
have
Doc Samson and Jane. That'd be even more interesting.
right Doc Samson, and 007. What about Tarzan and fucking Goldeneye?
Right?
I
Okay.
mean, they're-
And
right, like that's the thing. Like,
you know, frankly, if I'm dead, I don't give a shit.
well, we were talking about that with the Greatest Adventure. Ayrton and I reviewed a comic book that's on this channel. It's called The Greatest Adventure, and it's basically a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen with actually interesting characters.
No
and
way.
a complete lack of Sean Connery.
Wait a minute, shut the fuck up. Sean Connery was totally playing Tarzan in this book.
He probably still could.
Yes, and he gave a very deep analysis of the story as well.
That's correct. Not analysis, anal cyst. You know that
No
thing
Colin Firth.
that things that pops if you push on it from the left to the right. You know, like a zit.
I have a rule of thumb that nobody who's played a character.
No,
in
rule
any
of thumb.
Jane Austen
Rule of thumb
should
pertains
be-
to beating your wife. We have to disavow that.
I know. I have a policy. Okay, I have a policy.
I have a
personal
rule of policy thumbs.
I have a policy of rule thumbs.
All right,
that says
I'm picking up what
anybody
you're throwing down.
anybody who has played a character in a Jane Austen movie does not get to play an action character.
You can only enact that policy if you can tell me within the next minute what's the only movie Bruce Willis has ever been knocked out
in. I'm thinking.
It was with a
No,
trophy.
I can't. It's with what?
It's with a trophy.
Oh. Yeah, he wasn't in Home Alone.
The Fifth Element. He was knocked out in The Fifth Element by the priest.
Oh, yes! I love that movie.
Man, that's been forever since I've seen that one.
Jesus.
That's the only movie
Really?
that
That's
the
the only-
the main
I
the
believe it.
protagonist
I believe it.
never met the antagonist.
Wow.
But
Yeah,
Let's,
I love.
I'm gonna look up the YouTube video for the outro of Black Pill Dick Masterson. But I'm gonna give both of you 3 minutes to give your closing arguments. How do you feel about IP characters after this discussion?
Okay,
Go ahead, SK.
So here's the thing. Originally, copyright laws were 17 years and something about the life of the author. I forget exactly. And Disney specifically went in and got the fucking laws changed so that they wouldn't have to give up the rights to Mickey Mouse.
Right. Well, we
So
talked
current
about that
copy-
earlier.
So currently, copyright laws are Mickey Mouse. It's Mickey Mouse bullshit. And and they need to be returned. Copyright and IP laws need to have sanity restored to them. You gotta let these fuckers go.
As an author, SK, what is your time limit on intellectual property?
You know, I'm okay with, say, the life of the author plus 17. I think that was the original law. Let's just go back to that.
The life of the author plus what?
17 years. I believe that was the way the original law was written.
Let's just
something
round
like
it out to a
sounds-
20.
Not
Let's just
40
round it out.
years, for
Let's
fuck's
just
sake.
round it out to 20. Right?
Okay, sure.
Is that fair?
I think it is.
So the life of the
It's
author
not.
plus 20 years. So Stan
I
Lee
think that's
just
fair.
passed away. Stan Lee just
Right.
died, which means when
Right.
Spider-Man turns 80, he should go into
Right.
intellectual property.
He should be in public domain.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think that keeping these
I
characters
love this. I'm seeing on
Hold on,
under.
hold on.
Yeah, no, I'm
Okay.
Let me.
Guys, I don't give
Oh
a
no.
fuck about these bombs.
Oh
I
no.
don't give a fuck.
Sorry. Go
Oh,
ahead. that's the outro.
you didn't pass. Did you? Oh, I thought maybe you passed a mirror.
No, that's the outro that I loaded up, but it didn't
I love
do
this. I'm
anything
seeing
for
on the
me.
chat
I'm
that
gonna pause it here. All right. Hey, go ahead and finish your statement.
Yeah, I mean, just because we're in this amazing digital age does not mean that you get to hold on to your shit for perpetuity.
Right.
And it's not good for, it really isn't beneficial to anybody to do that. I mean, the bean counters think so, but it really isn't. It goes far beyond that. You gotta retire these characters. You gotta turn them into the public domain. You gotta support the fan fiction, the fan creators. Let that whole thing evolve and develop and take on a life of its own and see what the hell comes out of that. Because like 50 Shades, that was fan fiction, right?
Well, yeah.
They made a few bucks
Awful
off of
fan
that, didn't
fiction.
they?
Awful.
True enough, but cash cow. I don't mean that in a disparaging way against the actress at all.
Uh-huh.
All right. Ayrton, you wanna get a final thought in?
Yeah, well, first, thanks, SK, for coming on. And yes, we treat all of our guests like this.
No, straight up, we really appreciate you coming on and sticking out the duration with us.
Yeah, we do.
It's been a hoot. Thanks for having me.
Hey, anytime, man. Anytime you want to come on and talk about comic books, I will send you the links and or the digital copies and or the physicals, whatever I need to do if you want to jump on a show.
As long as you understand that I don't know shit about comics, then cool.
Hey, that's the best. I know everything about them, so I will always be right. So I'd have no problem having you
Yeah,
on.
basically.
What a great combination.
Hey, go ahead, Ayrton.
But-
when you're done, I'm
but
going to play this
yeah,
outro. It's fantastic.
But yeah, I would say, yeah, there's something needs to be done. Whether it's what SK suggested or your idea, but I mean, really, they're running out of stories. We need to stop giving these great characters
Let
nobody
great
who don't know what they're
characters
doing.
die again. That
Yeah.
needs to be a blue
Yeah.
hat.
Yeah. Well, a black hat.
Yeah.
But-
F for respect.
But
Yeah.
seriously, yeah, like, even if you are going to keep them around a little bit, don't give them to these people that don't know what they're doing. You have to earn these characters and their legacy and their stories. You
Right.
don't just get it just because
Like
you're
even
a black
being
disabled
even-
transvestite midget.
even being a cuck like Mark Wade, like your influence in the industry gets you the clout to write the shit. Like we'll
Yeah.
take a Mark Wade Spider-Man story over nothing.
Yeah, I mean, sure,
Maybe
he
that's
likes
part of
to.
the problem.
But anyway, let's go ahead and close this down. Thank you, SK. Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Denny. Thank you, Ayrton. And I guess thank me, Church. We're gonna
I'll say it. Thank you, Church.
thank you, man. We're gonna play an outro this week, which is different. So everybody stick around for this. I'll stop the streaming after the song is over, but I think you'll both enjoy it, and we'll say goodbye after the outro.
I love this. I'm seeing on the chat that I'm blue pill. I'm in three parentheses. Guys, I don't give a fuck about these bombs. I don't give a fuck about these bombs. Neither should you. Talking about it means you are blue pilled, you stupid fucking sheep. Talking about it at all is a nothing. Talking about these bombs is a way to show you ads. Talking about these bombs at all is a way to keep you looped into cable news. They don't fucking matter. The only thing that matters is your fucking money. And I guarantee you your money is being stripped away from you by the fucking Fed and by the fucking banks, you stupid cocksuckers. You telling me I'm blue pilled? Fuck you, you motherfuckers. I'm black fucking pilled. I am black as fuck. You give a fuck about a bomb? Stupid cocks. Who the fuck cares? Send 10,000 bombs. They'll write about it for fucking weeks. None of that shit matters. None of that shit matters. I am black as fuck. You give a fuck about a bomb? Stupid cocks. Who the fuck cares? Send 10,000 bombs. They'll write about it for fucking weeks. None of that shit matters. None of that shit matters. It doesn't fucking matter at all. The only thing that matters is your goddamn money, and it's being sucked away from you with higher interest rates, and you're too fucking stupid to realize it because you're living on credit. Statistically, you're living on fucking credit, and you're hooked in to you're fucking hooked into a system that's sucking it away from you. You are currently commenting on a system run by globalist bankers telling me I'm a fucking parentheses. Fuck you, you stupid cocksuckers. Fuck you. Man. Tell me I'm fucking blue pilled. Absolutely nothing. It's not fucking real. The only thing that matters is that they raise rates globally for their own interests, and all of us feed on each other with a currency that only matters to us. They raise rates to make the American dollar, which is the foundational currency of your entire world, better for them. Fuck, don't you fucking tell me that I don't know. Don't you fucking tell me that I'm ignorant of global economy. Fuck, they raise rates to make the American dollar, which is the foundational currency of your entire world, better for them. Fuck, don't you fucking tell me that I don't know. Don't you fucking tell me that I'm ignorant of global economy. Fuck, bring fucking patio furniture. Bring Medica on here. He'll school you on the fucking economy, you pricks. Anyway,
What did you just call Medicare, by the way?
I'm sorry.